So this last August, I set a goal for myself, and I thought it was totally realistic. I thought it was something I could accomplish, but it turned out to be something I just didn't do. I wanted to meet individually via video chat with every single one of my students. This would be an important chance to check in and to see how they were doing academically, to see how they were doing with pre-service teaching and in their practicum, but more importantly, just to see how they were doing in life. I knew that the quarantine was tough, that students were facing trauma, that they were probably hitting pandemic fatigue, and that they were feeling lonely amid the sense of social isolation that they had been experiencing. And so I thought, you know what, I'm gonna make sure that I have that one-on-one connection with every single student. And for a while it worked. I met with every student in 6 different classes. I felt like things were going well. And then I just couldn't do that for the final 2 classes. I had other things that came up, some trainings I did at the K-12 level. I had some university things that came up, some tenure review process and everything. And I don't know what all happened, but I just couldn't accomplish this goal. And on Monday, as I sat down and I was grading papers, I was reflecting on the semester and I felt like I had failed. I felt like I wasn't good enough as a professor. I began to think about all of those moments when I could have squeezed in another video conference. Like that time last week in the middle of the afternoon when I could have met with a student, but instead I sat down with my son and we worked on a Lego set. We're creating the Millennium Falcon, which by the way, I think we should call the Millennial Falcon, and we should have, avocado toast and a record player and just go all out millennial. But we did that, or I thought about those nights when I chose to go WALK, the dogs, instead of having a video chat, or the times when I played catch with my son or binge watched a TV show like Schitt's Creek or Kim's Convenience with my daughter. I thought about those moments when I chose to go running or lift weights. Maybe I could have actually done this if I had just pushed other things aside. And so I began to think, well, maybe I still have time. Maybe in the next 2 weeks, I can meet with all of my remaining students who I didn't have a one-on-one conference with. I began to scratch out a schedule on a sheet of paper and plan things out, and the whole process was sort of hopeful, but also overwhelming. And then as I talked to other educators, I noticed that this trend is something that many of us are experiencing. The feeling like we didn't do enough this semester. The nagging sense that we just weren't good enough. Some teachers, it's the sense of, getting on a video chat with students and seeing the black screens all around and looking at that and feeling like, why am I not connecting? For other teachers, it's just the lessons that completely tanked and didn't go anywhere. For others, it's maybe I should have checked in with students more often, or sent out more emails, or tracked down missing work, or communicated with parents more often. And it's easy to get stuck in the feelings that we just didn't do enough this semester. But it has me thinking about a moment in my first year of teaching. It was toward the end of the semester and I was having coffee with my mentor, Brad, and I told him that I wasn't sure I could make it as a teacher. I just had too many lessons that didn't go anywhere and didn't work. I had times when kids were talking when I was talking. I had moments that were cringeworthy when I yelled at my class, although at the time I called it raising my voice, but it was yelling. And I felt like I was completely failing as a teacher. And I remember he looked at me and he said, "John, you need to show yourself the same grace that you show your students." And I said, wait, what do you mean by that? And he said, "What would you think if a student always turned in perfect work?" And I said, I would think that my class is too easy and that they probably need a challenge, because you've got to make mistakes if you're going to learn. And he looked at me and he said, "Show yourself that same kind of grace. You are on a big learning curve." and eventually you'll be great at the craft of teaching, but it takes a long time to get there. And then he said the most dangerous place you can be as a teacher is in that place where you no longer make mistakes, because that's a sign that you've grown stagnant in your craft. There will always be mistakes as long as you're taking risks. And I thought about that conversation as I looked at the notes that I had for the upcoming 2 weeks, where I was going to schedule all of these different conferences. Show yourself the same kind of grace that you showed your students. The truth is, I have allowed for a lot of late work, and I've allowed for some missing work, and I've excused students who just couldn't make it to class. Because the pandemic is hard for everyone. And so I took those sheets of paper and I crumpled them up and I tossed them in the recycle bin, and I gave myself the permission to do less. I gave myself the permission to be imperfect. The truth of the matter is, this year has been unlike anything ever before. Some people call it distance learning, some people call it hybrid, some people call it virtual. I think it's pandemic pedagogy, and there is no blueprint, there is no instruction manual, there is no guide. We're all trying to figure this out together. And there will be big mistakes and scraped knees and difficult moments. Right now, the air is getting colder, the days are getting shorter, the nights are getting longer, and it is simply okay to do less. Now, that's not always easy, and sometimes we have administrators that don't understand that, and sometimes you feel the pressure from parents, but the reality is, regardless of the system, you are enough. You are doing enough. But the reality is, this year has been hard. The truth is, we've all experienced some level of trauma this year. Some people have lost loved ones to this pandemic. Others are facing economic hardships and they're not sure how they're going to pay their bills. But even for those who seem to have it less severe, there's still trauma. Graduations that got canceled, weddings that got postponed, date nights that didn't happen, live sporting events that you can't go to, concerts. Man, I miss going to live music. I was thinking about that the other day as I was grading my papers, and I just got into a funk. And I thought, what is my deal? What's going on? And I realized I'm sad because I won't get to go back to Phoenix for Christmas. And I know it's the right thing to do to not travel. But I was sad that I'm not going to get to give my mom a hug this year. And I'm not going to get to watch sports with my dad as he tries to insist that the Arizona Cardinals will make the playoffs, and they won't. Or hang out with my brother and have a pint and enjoy the craft beer scene. Or hang out with my sister and nerd out over novels. None of that's going to happen this year. We're all experiencing pandemic fatigue. We're all experiencing trauma. And it is okay to do less. It is okay to be less than perfect. Teachers have been amazingly faithful this year. They've been strong. They've been there for students. And if you feel like you haven't done enough, the truth is you have. I guarantee you have done enough this year. This year has been a marathon. And you know what I love about marathons? Everybody gets a medal. It doesn't matter if you crawled through part of it. It doesn't matter if you walked through a good portion of it. It doesn't matter if you stumbled in mile 20 and two of your friends had to carry you during part of it as you hobbled through. If you made it to the finish line, and you have made it to this finish line, then you deserve a medal. I know, I get it. I'm from the generation where everyone gets a participation trophy. I understand. But I truly believe that this year, everyone deserves a trophy because of showing up and being faithful. My hope is that at the end of this semester, teachers can look back and they can define success as being faithful rather than having huge results or having perfect data. Now, I realize that this might sound like I'm saying teachers should have lower standards and they should be okay with mediocrity. But it's not that. I actually believe that when you define success as being faithful rather than having big results, that you actually become a better teacher. You're willing to take creative risks, you're willing to experiment, because if it doesn't work perfectly, that's okay. You were still successful simply because you showed up and did your job. When we give ourselves the permission to be imperfect, we're able to be humble and to grow and to learn. We're able to be there relationally for our students. We're able to find joy in the work that we do. A few weeks ago, I made this video as a thank you to teachers for the amazing work that they've done. Dear teachers, last spring, you made the shift from face-to-face teaching to pandemic pedagogy. In a matter of days, you found innovative solutions to huge challenges. You designed virtual lessons with limited time and limited resources. And there was no roadmap or blueprint. Now, it wasn't perfect. There were some mistakes along the way. But you were there for your students every single day. You've proven that social distance doesn't have to mean relational distance. Despite the roadblocks, you've built a classroom community on empathy and kindness, where students engage in meaningful collaboration. You've done check-ins and partnered with families. You've helped find resources for students who are struggling. You've experimented with new approaches, and you've taken creative risks. You've continued to learn. You're reading books, watching videos, listening to podcasts, and reading articles. And you're curating content and engaging in professional discussions. You're crafting meaningful lessons that empower students with voice and choice, like that awesome scavenger hunt, or the maker project, or that blogging project, or the choice menu, or the game-based learning activity you did. Now, 2020 has been hard. We've seen wildfires and natural disasters and an economic downturn. Oh, and apparently murder hornets? Seriously, murder hornets. Meanwhile, teaching is especially challenging right now. It can feel draining when you have a barrage of emails to answer, or when you do a video conference and face a wall of black screens. Some of the social media comments about teachers have been downright toxic. But know this, you are impacting lives. Right now, there's a student who feels known and heard because of you. There's a student who is passionate about learning because of you. There are students who will remember you forever as someone who was there for them in these dark times. You are changing the world even when you can't see it. So thank you. Now here's the thing. I spent hours on that video. And I watched it and I rewatched it and I double checked everything, and yet somehow, even with all of the precautions I took, there's a mistake. I misspelled innovative. Now, a lot of people didn't catch it, but I did have 4 different people send me a direct message telling me that it was incorrect. Now, 3 of those people were incredibly kind and gracious, and I'm glad that they gave me that feedback. But one person blasted me. She said, how are we supposed to ever respect teachers if they have those kinds of typos? What message does that send to the rest of the world? And at first I thought, well, maybe I'll just tell her that I was finding an innovative way to spell innovative, that I was going to be different. And then I realized, no, that's not true at all. I'm just going to be honest. And I told her, I think the message it sends to people is that teachers are not perfect, and that imperfection is okay. Initially, I thought that I would delete that video, I would redo it, I would repost it, And then I decided, no, I'm gonna keep that video up and allow the mistake to be there as a reminder to me that even when I try my best, there's still gonna be mistakes. There are a lot of memes out there that compare teachers to superheroes. But for what it's worth, I would rather be Clark Kent than Superman. I'd rather be humble, normal, imperfect. Because in the end, I think that's what my students actually need, is someone who is deeply human. It's easy at the end of the semester to try to think of that one big final project. But I would argue that the end of the semester might just be the opportunity to reflect. It's a chance to think about the learning that actually did happen amid this pandemic. It's an opportunity to think about what you believe and what you've done and what you value and who you love. In the end, I actually don't think that the big things are where the epic life is found. I think the epic life is found in the little things.
When I was a kid, I thought the epic life was a big life. You know, hit the game-winning home run, slay a dragon, conquer a distant land. When I got older, I still believed that the epic life meant doing big things. Make more money, travel the world, make a name for yourself, be recognized for your excellence, do something memorable, make something big. I viewed the epic life as a battle to be fought or a game to be won. But what if the epic life really isn't like this? What if it's all about tiny, humbler experiences that ultimately build a better life? When I think of my dad, I remember the hours spent tossing the baseball back and forth, or playing video games in the living room, or the times that we went to the lake. And when I think about my mom, I remember the long talks and the art projects, and the trips to the bookstore, and the hours spent playing Uno on a rainy day, or that time that we used tennis rackets to form a family air guitar band. Sometimes I forget this. I think life is found in doing big projects that get tons of attention, or in delivering more keynotes, or having a successful book, or gaining the reputation as an expert in education. But that's not where life is found. Life is a journey with tiny destinations. It's found in building a pillow fort, or a Lego set, or gathering together for a meal. It's found in writing a story, painting a picture without worrying about the numbers and the metrics. It's found in serving others and making a difference, even when you go unnoticed. It's found in exploring ideas and geeking out on things just for the fun of it. It's found in staring out in wonder at the canvas of the stars and being overwhelmed with the universe and its beauty, and then watching the same amazement on the eyes of my kids. It's found in spending a lifetime with the woman I fell in love with over a decade ago, who never ceases to amaze me.
Last week I was feeling like I was failing because I didn't meet with every single student. But you know what I did do? I worked on a Lego set. I played catch with my son. I worked out. I had the longest conversation with the love of my life. I had a really cool final night of class. I graded papers. None of these are big things, but all together they add up to the epic life. And so my hope for you as you enter into the winter break is that you remember that you are enough and that you've done enough. And that those little things that you do that don't seem like a big deal are actually pretty epic. Hey, thank you for watching this video. Would you do me a favor? If you enjoy this video, would you click on the like button and consider subscribing to this channel?